5 kinds of conscience, viveka. Viveka conscience is a special kind of deliberation. Deliberation, vichara, is the endeavor to select a particular idea from several ideas. If a particular person is presented to you as a criminal, then there are two opposing ideas before you, the guilt of the man or his innocence. The process whereby one comes to a conclusion after deliberating upon these two opposing ideas is called vichara. When you finally make your decision, it is called siddhanta, conclusion. Conscience viveka is defined as a special type of vichara, deliberation. The notion of vichara is broader than that of viveka. A thief, on entering his victim's house, considers whether it would be better to start stealing in the dining room or the sitting room. This is a kind of deliberation, after which the thief reaches his conclusion. This deliberation is vichara and not viveka. Viveka is that kind of deliberation where there is a conscious endeavor to decide in favor of shreya, benevolence. When confronted with the two opposing ideas of shreya and preya, malevolence, viveka is of 5 types, and their collective name is viveka panchaka. The first type is nitya viveka, discrimination between permanent and impermanent. Whenever an intelligent person ponders over something, he or she discerns its two aspects, the permanent and the impermanent. The attempt to accept the permanent aspect after due deliberation is called nitya viveka. The permanent is not dependent on the relative factors of time, space, and person, whereas the impermanent is the collectivity of the relative factors. The best way to recognize the impermanent is that if one of the 3 relative factors is changed, it will undergo an immediate transformation. Nitya viveka enables human beings to realize the necessity of observing Dharma. It helps them to understand the fundamental differences between Dharma and religion or doctrine. Religion is something entirely relative, whereas Dharma is a permanent truth. The first characteristic of religion is that it gives excessive importance to a single individual. Different regions claim that such and such great personality, Mahapurusha, is a son of God, a prophet, or even God himself. However wise these great persons might be, they are nevertheless mortal. Some also claim that the propounders of other religions could not come as close to God as their own propounder did. These words are not only irrational, but contains a concealed attempt to make the impermanent permanent. Dharma is an eternal truth, credible and does not depend on any individual, prophet or avatara, direct descent of God, for its substantiation. The goal of Dharma is the attainment of Brahma. Its base and its movement are Brahma-centered. Brahma is the absolute entity, independent of time, space, and person. He is permanent. Brahma sadhana, therefore, is the sadhana for the attainment of the permanent entity. Through nitya viveka, human beings become aware of the fleeting nature of transient objects. They observe that with change in time, place, and person, corresponding changes occur in social, political, economic, and all other spheres of life, to which they have to adapt themselves. Those who are reluctant to adapt themselves to the changed circumstances are doomed to destruction. A religion or an ism is created in a certain age, which itself is a product of the 3 factors of time, place, and person. However, the religion does not recognize the necessity of adjustment with the change in social life. It refuses to realize that the old rules and regulations of the previous age are now only historical records, having lost their relevance in the present dynamic society. To stifle the progress of humanity, the followers of these religions play on human sentiments and other weaknesses. They want to perpetuate the whole of the Western interests by infusing an inferiority complex into the human mind. While preaching their religious ideas, some claim that the social, economic, and political systems were direct creations of God, and hence destined to be observed in all ages and at all times with equal veneration. They pronounced that those who refuse to follow this divine decree will be doomed to burn in the scorching heat of God's wrath, or damned to suffer eternal hellfire. To deny people the scope of verifying the rationality of different scriptures, they declare that such and such scriptures are infallible, and so nobody has the right to question their veracity. If the philosophical texts contradict the scriptures, then their propounders will be declared as atheists. So it is seen that it is the absence of Nitya Nitya Viveka. The propounders of religion want to thwart the intellectual progress of human society at large. They knowingly refuse to understand that any observation regarding the spatial, temporal, and personal factors, from whatever person it might come, is bound to lose its relevance in a transformed situation. Through Nitya Nitya Viveka, try to understand what is permanent and what is impermanent. You will certainly realize that no scripture is a revelation of God, that everything in this world, created by time, space, and individuality, is transient phenomenon. For the transient body and the transient mind, one cannot deny the necessity of transient mundane objects. Though these things are necessary, they are still transient. In the introversive phase of the cosmic imagination, intellectual progress of human beings is bound to take place, and consequently their control over matter will gradually increase. In the process of further intellectual development, the old ideas and values of the undeveloped life will become outdated. You must have noticed that people with old, outdated ideas will very often lament that the present younger generation has no spatial inclination whatsoever. Everything is lost, they lament. Perhaps they do not understand, or maybe knowingly refuse to believe, that scientific knowledge is increasing dramatically. Modern youth is becoming acquainted with newer inventions and discoveries. They are learning about many new things and accepting them from the core of their hearts. As a result, the intellectual backwardness of the past seems to be totally absurd to them. The more scientific knowledge they acquire in the Pratisanjara movement of the cosmic cycle, they will certainly advance. The more they will try to liberate themselves from the noose of religion and isms, and the further they will advance along the path of Dharma directly, scientifically and supported by rational judgment. Are the proponents of isms not aware of this fact? They are well aware, and that is why they deliberately criticize material science at every opportunity, but this sort of criticism does not impress intellectual people.